The lawyer said Mr. Justin would only give us 10 minutes. So I stood in the rain holding my son. The villa's iron gate was tightly shut, and the surveillance camera's red light was flashing. My son stirred in my arms, his little face pressed against my chest. In a babyish voice, he asked, "Mommy, is Daddy in there?" My throat tightened, and I gave a soft hum in response. My son's small hand clutched my shirt tightly, his voice filled with hope. "Is Daddy sick? Is that why he can't see us?" I clung to him as if he were my last lifeline. The door finally opened. Out stepped his secretary, dressed in a suit and tie, expressionless. Justin was nowhere to be seen behind him. "Jenna, Justin is busy." The secretary placed a thin envelope on the desk. "This is child support. Justin hopes you won't come bothering him anymore." The envelope was light, containing only a card. The secretary added, "Justin said if the money isn't enough, he can give more, but he won't see the child." The son tilted his head back, his big eyes filled with confusion. "Uncle, is Daddy very busy? When will he be done?" The secretary's eyes flickered briefly before returning to their usual coldness. "Young man, your father has a new family now. From now on, you should just pretend he never existed." The boy froze, his little mouth puckering as tears welled up in his eyes but stubbornly refused to fall. He turned his head and buried his face in my chest, his small body beginning to tremble. I took the bank card. Staring at the secretary, my voice cracked, "Tell him I've accepted the money. As for the child, he'll never be acknowledged in this lifetime." The secretary said nothing, merely gave a slight nod before turning and stepping through the heavy iron door. The door closed, separating two worlds. The rain grew heavier. Holding my son, I turned and walked away without looking back. That card, I snapped it in half and tossed it into a roadside trash can. The child has a fever. After getting caught in the rain returning from Justin's villa, the fever came on in the middle of the night. His little face is bright red, his whole body is burning hot, and his breathing is rapid. I rushed him into the community clinic, where the elderly doctor on duty took his temperature and frowned deeply, 39.8 degrees. "Get him to a major hospital immediately. Don't delay." At 3 in the morning, I carried my burning hot son on my back, hailing cars on the deserted streets. None stopped. The rain began again. Harder than during the day. Icy raindrops pelted my face, mingling with my son's tears and trickling down my neck. Despair crept up like a vine. "Mommy, I feel so bad." My son clung to my back, his voice faint as a kitten's. "Honey, a cab will be here soon. Mommy will take you to the hospital." I gasped, my voice shaking uncontrollably. Finally, a taxi with its vacant light flashing pulled up. I practically threw myself against the car window, pounding on it. The driver rolled down the window and saw me carrying a child, soaked to the bone, my face streaked with tears or rainwater, I couldn't tell which. "Driver. Please. My child has a high fever. Take us to the central hospital. Please." I was barely coherent. The driver hesitated, glancing at the downpour, but finally opened the door. "Hop in. Don't get soaked." The car sped through the rainy night. I held my son tightly, constantly touching his forehead. It was frighteningly hot. "Baby, don't sleep. Talk to Mommy," I whispered, my voice trembling. My son murmured a faint in his drowsy state, his small body curled up in my arms. At the hospital emergency room, I registered and paid the fees. I searched every pocket and found only a few crumpled bills and a rain-soaked business card. The nurse looked at the money I handed her, then glanced at the child who was delirious from the fever. She sighed. "Go cool the child down first. I'll go talk to the director." I sat on the cold plastic bench, holding my son close. With damp wipes, I repeatedly wiped his forehead, palms, and soles. All around me was the clamor of voices, children's cries, and adults' anxiety. Yet my world was utterly still. This burning little body in my arms was my only anchor. And my only responsibility. The nurse returned, her expression softening slightly. "The director said to administer the medication to the child first. We'll figure out how to settle the fees tomorrow. Come with me." At that moment, the weight on my heart lifted a little. Holding my son, I followed the nurse into the treatment room. Watching the 4-needle pierce his tiny hand, his little brow furrowing in pain, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. The nurse handed me a payment slip, sign here, then head to the observation area. I signed my name, Jenna. Then added 2 small words, this is my son. George. And that man? No connection anymore. After the nurse left, I sat on the small stool beside the hospital bed, watching the clear liquid drip steadily from the 4 bottle. Outside the window, the sky began to lighten. The rain had stopped. The deepest part of the night seemed to have passed. But I knew the hardest days were only just beginning. After dawn, I dialed the number on the business card. It was my best friend from college, Winnie. After graduation, she moved south for work, and we lost touch, but I kept her number all along. The phone rang for ages before someone picked up. Hello, came a sleepy female voice. Winnie, it's me, Jenna. My voice was hoarse. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line, then Winnie's voice rose sharply, Jenna? Oh my God. Is it really you? You, what happened? Your voice sounds so hoarse. She started to speak, but her throat felt stuffed with cotton, and the rest of her words turned into choked sobs. Jenna? Jenna, don't cry. What happened? Where are you? I'll book a ticket right away. Winnie snapped awake, panic rising. I'm at the Central Hospital. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Winnie, I need money. A lot of money. Winnie didn't hesitate for a second, give me the account. How much? I'll transfer it right now. Don't worry, I'm also on a business trip in New York, I'm not far from you. Wait for me. In half an hour, all the overdue fees will be paid in full. 40 minutes later, Winnie burst into the hospital room. She wore a sharp business suit, her hair still slightly tousled. Seeing the little one still hooked up to and 4 on the hospital bed, then glancing at my utterly exhausted state, her eyes instantly welled up with tears. Jenna. You damn woman. She lunged at me, wanting to hit me but holding back, finally pulling me into a tight embrace. After something this huge happened, you only come to me now? Do you even consider me a friend? Leaning against that familiar shoulder, the tension that had been coiled in my nerves all night finally unraveled, and tears fell silently. I'm sorry, Winnie. Don't you dare say you're sorry. Winnie let go of me, roughly wiped her eyes, and leaned over the hospital bed. She gently touched George's forehead. Has the fever gone down? What did the doctor say? Acute pneumonia. He'll need to stay in the hospital for a few days, I said hoarsely. Winnie looked at the little one's flushed face with heartache. Whose child is this? How did it come to this? When did you become a mother? Where's the child's father? Is he dead? A barrage of questions came at me. I paused briefly, then replied succinctly, Justin's. He doesn't want it anymore. Justin? Winnie's eyes widened like saucers, her voice suddenly rising. That bastard? He made you have his baby? Then he abandoned it? Is he even human? Winnie, keep your voice down. I tugged at her. Winnie's chest heaved with fury as she glared at George, then turned to me, her teeth clenched. Fine. Just fine. Justin, he'd better watch out. Jenna, tell me, what are you going to do now? I gazed at my son's peaceful face in the hospital bed, fragments of our shattered dreams flashing through my mind. I need to work. Winnie, I remember you're doing high-end custom clothing? Winnie paused for a moment, then nodded. Yes, mainly a luxury women's wear line. Why? I studied design in college, remember? I looked at her, my gaze more determined than ever. These past few years, I've kept sketching design drafts, but never had a chance to use them. Winnie, I want to return to my old profession. I need an opportunity. Winnie's eyes lit up. You're serious? I know your design skills. Absolutely no problem. Our company is actually hiring a design assistant right now, though it's a bit of an entry-level position. I don't care where I start, I cut her off, my gaze fixed on my son's face. As long as I can support him, I'll do whatever it takes. Winnie gripped my hand tightly. All right. Jenna, join me. If you've got what it takes, I'll sell everything I own to promote you. Let that blind bastard Justin see what treasure he's lost. On the day of discharge, the sun was shining brightly. George's little face still bore a hint of post-illness pallor, but his spirits had lifted considerably. Holding my hand, he gazed curiously at the bustling world outside the hospital. "Mom, where are we going?" "Let's go to our new place." I smiled and adjusted his little hat. Winnie had helped me rent a studio apartment in an older neighborhood, not big, but clean and tidy, and most importantly, close to her office. "Settle in first. For work, come to the office next Monday to report to me." Winnie pressed the keys into my hand. "Don't worry, I'm here for you. Winnie, I'll pay you back as soon as I can." I looked at her, my heart filled with gratitude. "Don't even mention money to me." Winnie glared at me. "Get your health back on track, take good care of your little hottie, and then bring your A game to work. I'm counting on you to help me build this empire." After seeing Winnie off, I began tidying up our little home. George was being very good, sitting on his little stool and playing with the few old toys I'd bought him. "Mommy, the new house is nice," he said, tilting his face up to smile at me. My heart melted completely. I crouched down and hugged him. "Yes, our new home. From now on, it's just Mommy and George." He reached out his little hand and touched my face. "George will protect Mommy." His tiny palm held a warm, reassuring strength. I buried my face in his little shoulder and nodded firmly. A new chapter begins. On Monday, I slipped into my only decent old suit and dropped George off at an affordable daycare center in our neighborhood. The little guy was so understanding, though his eyes held a hint of reluctance, he obediently followed the teacher inside. "Mommy will pick you up after work," I said, kissing his forehead. "Okay. Mommy, do your best," he nodded vigorously. Winnie's company is medium-sized, specializing in online luxury women's apparel with a youthful, fashion-forward design aesthetic. She took me straight to the office of the design director. The director, a woman in her 40s, was dressed in a sharp, professional style. She flipped through the photocopies of my design drafts, sketches I'd drawn during countless late nights caring for children over the past few years. The technique was solid, the ideas fresh. "But Jenna, your resume shows a gap in your work history for the last few years. And we're hiring an assistant, it's demanding work, and the pay isn't high." I met her gaze and said plainly, "Director Hope, I need this job. I'm not afraid of hard work. Just give me the chance, and I'll prove my worth." Winnie chimed in, "Hope, Jenna is my best friend, her skills are absolutely solid. Just give her a chance to prove herself." Director Hope pondered for a moment before finally nodding. "All right, a 3-month probationary period. I trust your recommendation, Manager Winnie. But her performance will be the deciding factor. Start her off in an assistant role to familiarize her with the workflow. My desk sits in the corner of the office, a small table piled high with fabric swatches, trims, and design sketches. An assistant's work is full of little tasks, organizing materials, printing blueprints, running errands to factories, assisting designers, and even fetching tea and water. Several young design assistants in the same group eyed me with scrutiny and a barely perceptible hint of disdain. "You're the one Manager Winnie recommended," a girl named India leaned in, her tone probing. "I hear you've never worked in this field before? And you have a child? That's really something." I nodded calmly. "Yeah, just starting out. Please guide me." Another colleague scoffed. "You have the energy to do design work while raising a kid? Just don't slow us down." I ignored their gossip and buried myself in sorting through the mountain of documents piled on my desk. Time is too precious for me. I must familiarize myself with everything as quickly as possible. At noon, Winnie pulled me to the staff cafeteria for lunch. "Don't mind them. Just focus on your work." She piled my plate high with food. I had little appetite, but forced myself to eat it all. In the afternoon, Jade, a senior designer, asked me to deliver a stack of revised design drafts to the sample room and point out areas requiring special attention. Carrying the thick bundle of drawings, I had just reached the sample room door when I heard the sound of a heated argument coming from inside. "This neckline can't be altered. The fabric properties dictate that it must be shaped this way. The client specifically requested this effect. We have to make it work even if it can't be changed. Otherwise, this order will be scrapped. You'll be held responsible?" I pushed open the door. The ones arguing were pattern maker Tom and designer Jade. Jade's face flushed crimson with anger. "Tom, be reasonable. I warned you during the pattern making stage that this fabric isn't suitable for such an exaggerated lapel. Now we're stuck with this. How am I supposed to explain it to the client?" Tom was a stubborn old man. How am I unreasonable? You're the one who doesn't understand the craft. You insisted on this design. Now that problems have arisen, you're blaming me? The two remained deadlocked, the atmosphere tense. I walked over silently, placed the design draft on the table, and let my gaze fall on the sample garment with the collar issue. It was a crisp cotton linen blend jacket featuring a very fashionable large lapel. The problem definitely lay with the fabric. This blended fabric has a certain stiffness. When making such a large lapel, the collar points tend to curl outward or inward after setting, making it difficult to lie flat and giving a cheap appearance. Looking at the sample garment and then at the pattern, a sudden image flashed through my mind. It was George's little coat from last winter. Its collar also stubbornly kept flipping up, so I resorted to a rather crude solution. "Jade," I began, my voice quiet but clear above the clamor, "perhaps we could try ironing a small, invisible interfacing strip along the inner edge of the lapel? Use a softer, yet shape-retaining woven interfacing. Don't set it permanently, just iron a short section where structure is needed to hold the lapel's curve. It won't show on the outside." The arguing abruptly stopped. Jade and Tom both turned to look at me. Jade frowned. "Invisible interlining?" Tom pushed up his reading glasses, picked up the sample garment, and examined the lapel closely. After a moment's thought, he said, "Seems feasible?" Jade's eyes lit up. She immediately said to Tom, "Try it out right away." Tom, ever the man of action, promptly went to gather materials. Only then did Jade turn her full attention to me. The earlier restlessness had vanished from her gaze, replaced by a more scrutinizing look. "You're the new assistant? What's your name?" "Jenna." "Good. Jenna." She nodded. "I have some ideas. Take a good look at my design sketches from now on." A minor issue with the sample garment was resolved. The looks I got from the design department started to shift subtly. India and Harper no longer fired off sarcastic remarks so readily. I knew this was just the first step. The days that followed felt like a clockwork routine. Every morning, I dropped George off at daycare. Then I squeeze onto the subway to work, arriving at the office first to handle the most mundane tasks. While assisting designers and running errands, I soak up knowledge like a sponge, the latest trends, fabric properties, craftsmanship details, client preferences. At night, after settling George down to sleep, I'd open that second-hand laptop and start sketching my designs. Inspiration came from life, from a look on George's face, from the silhouette of a woman hurrying past on the street, from the bright apron cloth worn by an auntie at the market. When I feel sleepy, I splash cold water on my face. Time is tight, so I have to run faster. After a month of probation, the company landed a major order. A cutting-edge hotel brand specializing in high-end vacations needed custom uniforms for its staff. High standards, it must embody the brand's character, be comfortable and high quality, feature a distinctive design, and all this without breaking the bank. The design team held multiple meetings, but every proposal was rejected by Director Hope. No good. Too ordinary. Lacks standout features. And the cost calculations are over budget. The entire design department was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Winnie was so flustered she came to me privately. "Jenna, do you have any ideas? Help me figure something out. If we don't land this deal, our quarterly bonuses will go down the drain." I shut myself in the corner of the tea room, studying the hotel's brand manual and positioning statement: natural, relaxed, understated luxury. The image of George rolling around on the park lawn flashed through my mind, that carefree joy. Then there were Justin's expensive yet cold, aloof haute couture suits. A thought struck me. Vacation, comfort, texture, perhaps it could break the mold? I pulled out my sketchbook and began sketching rapidly. The next morning, I placed several rough yet conceptually clear drafts on Director Hope's desk. "Director, these are just some of my unpolished ideas." Director Hope was massaging his temples when he saw my draft, his brow instinctively furrowing. "Jenna? What is this?" She picked up the manuscript, at first merely skimming it casually. Gradually, her gaze sharpened, her brow furrowing deeper and deeper, yet her eyes grew brighter and brighter. I stood there feeling a bit nervous. The other designers in the office glanced over quietly. Director Hope stared at it for a full 5 minutes before suddenly lifting her head, her eyes fixed on me with intense focus. "Did you come up with this?" I nodded. The essence of a vacation is relaxation and reconnecting with nature. Staff uniforms don't have to be tight and formal. Natural fabrics like cotton linen blends or tencel can be used to create loose yet structured silhouettes that evoke a comfortable, laid-back vibe. But key areas should be tailored to ensure a clean, sharp look without any sloppiness. I pointed to one of the designs. Take this tunic, for instance. It draws inspiration from reimagined Zen robes, featuring a V-neck, three-quarter sleeves, side slits, and an asymmetrical hemline for fluid lines. Crafted from lightweight, breathable tencel linen with excellent drape. Flip to another page, pair the top with wide-leg cropped pants or a modified loose straight skirt. Stick to the hotel's primary palette of off-white, oatmeal, and light khaki, accented with the hotel logo's deep ocean blue. Accessories are simplified too. A woven belt in the same color palette or a small brooch made of natural materials will suffice. This ensures comfort and ease of movement while creating a unified, sophisticated look. Cost should be manageable. I finished speaking. The office fell silent. Director Hope's fingers drummed on the desk, her gaze piercing enough to see right through me. Jade leaned in to look at the draft, her eyes widening with astonishment. India and Harper craned their necks to get a better look. Good. Director Hope suddenly slammed her hand on the table, startling everyone. A genuine smile, her first in quite some time, lit up her face as she tapped my draft with her finger. Jenna, this is interesting. The approach is spot on. You've really broken out of the box. She immediately made the call. Jade, you're in charge of coordination. Jenna, you'll lead the design for this proposal. Everyone else, give it your all. We'll refine the plan along these lines and deliver a complete proposal within 3 days. This decision felt like a stone dropped into a calm pond. As a seasoned designer, Jade felt a bit embarrassed, but the proposal had truly captured Director Hope's heart. She could only nod. All right, Jenna, let's get moving. I became the temporary core of this project. The pressure was greater than ever before. But I had no room to back down. For 3 days and nights, I barely slept a wink. Researching materials, scrutinizing details, selecting fabrics, calculating costs, drafting more precise drawings, discussing with Jade, communicating with pattern makers, and collaborating with sample makers. Winnie brought me stacks of coffee and pastries. Exhausted, I laid my head on the desk for 10 minutes. Only one thought occupied my mind: this has to succeed. On the day of the proposal, 3 representatives from the client arrived, led by a young woman with impeccable style and a commanding presence. Director Hope personally led Jade and me in the presentation. I was the primary author of the proposal document, which was richly illustrated. Standing before the projection screen, my palms were drenched in sweat. This was my first time pitching in front of such a large audience. From the audience, Winnie gave me a thumbs-up gesture. I took a deep breath and began my presentation. My thoughts flowed clearly and logically, covering everything from brand philosophy to design inspiration, fabric selection to craftsmanship details, cost control to wearability. I brought all my expertise and passion to the table. When discussing design details, I presented 2 critical sample garments I'd rushed to complete: a loose-fitting V-neck oversized top and a pair of wide-leg cropped pants. Everyone, please take a look. I gestured for Jade to try on the sample garment. What we aim to convey is the wearer's own confidence and comfort. Clothing should serve the person, not constrain them. The vacation atmosphere begins the moment guests step into the hotel, conveyed by our staff. Though Jade wasn't particularly keen on modeling, the outfit she wore turned out surprisingly well. The loose cut softened her usually slightly tense demeanor, while the high-quality fabric elevated the overall sophisticated feel, effortlessly chic yet exquisitely refined. The young female manager from Party A, who had initially maintained a strictly professional demeanor, gradually began to show signs of interest. By the end, her eyes were practically sparkling. She even stood up, walked over to Jade, and carefully felt the fabric of the garment before examining the intricate craftsmanship. That's interesting. She nodded, turning to Director Hope. Director Hope, who is this? This is Jenna, the design assistant in our design department. This proposal is primarily her idea. Director Hope introduced me at the right moment. The female project lead looked at me with some surprise and extended her hand. Jenna, that's a great idea. I'm Riley, the project lead for this initiative. Riley. The name pierced my ears like a cold needle, striking without warning. My smile froze momentarily before resuming its usual composure. I extended my hand for a brief handshake. Manager Riley, you flatter me. Yet beneath the surface, a storm of emotion churned. Riley. Justin's new family. The reason that secretary gave him to abandon us, my palm instantly turned ice cold. The proposal went smoothly. Though Riley didn't give an immediate commitment, she was very receptive, suggesting several minor adjustments and requesting to see the revised plan and full set of sample garments as soon as possible. I hope we can move to the next phase quickly, she said before leaving. Director Hope and Winnie both breathed a sigh of relief. This deal was practically in the bag. After seeing the client off, Director Hope gave me a rare, approving smile. Jenna, great job. If this deal closes, you'll get a permanent position and be promoted to designer. The looks on everyone else's faces in the office had completely changed, now filled with admiration and a hint of complexity. Only Winnie, after the crowd dispersed, yanked me into the stairwell. Jenna. That Riley. Is he the one? She lowered her voice, her face turning ashen. I leaned against the cold wall, feeling all strength drained from my body as exhaustion washed over me like a tidal wave. I nodded, my voice dry. It was her. Damn it. Winnie slammed her fist into the wall. What a small world. What kind of twisted fate is this? She didn't recognize you, did she? I shook my head, probably not. Justin and I kept things low-key. She might only know my name, never seen me in person. I paused, tugging at the corner of my mouth in self-mockery. Besides, the person I am now is probably unrecognizable compared to the pitiful creature she remembers, the one who depended on Justin's charity. Winnie looked at me with heartache. Jenna, you. I'm fine, I cut her off, straightening my posture as my gaze hardened. Work is work. Winnie, I have to land this deal. For George, and for myself. Riley? She won't stand in my way. In the days that followed, I threw myself wholeheartedly into sample garment production. I refined design proposals, scoured fabric markets, and meticulously discussed every detail with pattern maker Tom. Riley was pushing hard with tight deadlines and exacting standards. I practically lived in the sample room. When George gets out of daycare, Winnie picks him up if she's free. If she's busy, I have to bring him to the office. The little guy is very well behaved. He just sits on a small stool in the corner of the sample room, playing with toys or looking at the picture books I bring. He doesn't make a fuss. Tom was an old man with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Seeing the little one quiet, he'd occasionally bring him scraps of fabric to play with. George, come here. Look at this piece of cloth, isn't the color beautiful? Tom teased him. George held the scrap and said in his baby voice, beautiful. It's like the color of the sky. The day Riley came to the company to check on the sample garment progress happened to be a weekend. George was there too. He sat on a small stool, holding a colored marker, intently drawing something on the back of a discarded blueprint. Accompanied by Director Hope and myself, Riley meticulously examined several hanging garment samples. She was extremely particular about craftsmanship and details, even pulling out a magnifying glass to inspect the stitching. The thread color here still stands out a bit. Use thread closer to the fabric's hue, she remarked, pointing to the side seam of a pair of pants. All right, Manager Riley. I jotted it down immediately. She picked up another smock and held it up to the light. This snap fastener position, move it up 1/2 centimeter, and it'll fasten more smoothly. Understood. I nodded. Her professionalism and meticulousness left me no room for complacency. After inspecting all the sample garments, Riley was reasonably satisfied. The overall effect meets expectations. Jenna put a lot of effort into this. Her gaze drifted casually toward the corner of the fitting room, where she spotted George sitting on a small stool, head bowed as he sketched. The little one was engrossed in his drawing, his face radiating innocence. Riley's gaze lingered on him for 2 seconds, his brow furrowing almost imperceptibly. My heart clenched. This child. Riley's voice carried a hint of doubt. Director Hope quickly explained, oh, that's Jenna's child. No one could watch them over the weekend, so they're staying in the office for a little while. The child is very well behaved and won't make any noise. Riley's gaze shifted from George's face to mine, her eyes now tinged with scrutiny and an indescribable complexity. Jenna got married? She asked casually, yet her stare felt like a spotlight. I answered calmly, no. I take care of him myself. Riley didn't press further, just nodded. She glanced at George again, the complexity in her eyes deepening. She quickly excused herself and left. I stood frozen in place, a cold sweat breaking out on my back. Winnie patted her chest nervously. That scared the life out of me. Did she notice something? Her eyes were so strange. I watched my son's oblivious little face, my heart sinking bit by bit. Riley, she must have recognized something. Between the child's brows lay an indelible shadow, one that belonged to his father. The final sample garment received Riley's approval. The major hotel uniform order was officially signed. My name was formally mentioned for the first time in the design department. Director Hope announced at the regular meeting that I had been promoted ahead of schedule to junior designer. My salary doubled. After the meeting, Jade walked over and patted my shoulder. Jenna, I underestimated you before. Let's keep pushing forward together. Her eyes held genuine recognition. India and Harper also gathered around, their attitudes noticeably warmer. Jenna, take us under your wing more often. Seriously, you're such a hidden gem. I smiled politely, though my heart wasn't at ease. Riley's eyes, filled with scrutiny and complexity, felt like a thorn. On the weekend, I took George to the mall to buy him some new clothes. The little guy grows so fast, last year's clothes are already too short. As soon as we stepped into a children's clothing store, I heard a voice that was both familiar and unfamiliar. Justin, what do you think of this little suit? It'll look sharp for the baby's 100-day celebration. My feet instantly froze in place. I turned toward the voice. Not far away, by the racks in the children's clothing section. Riley held a small, exquisitely tailored blue suit. Beside her stood a man with an upright posture, clad in a gray cashmere coat. Justin. My breath caught in my throat. Time seemed to stretch and freeze in that moment. He stood sideways to me, his features still sharp and distant, the space between his brows and eyes unchanged as ever. He was looking down at the clothes in Riley's hands, his face expressionless, yet that focused posture was something I had never possessed. Beside him stood a luxurious stroller. Inside lay a baby wrapped in a soft blanket, only a glimpse of its rosy little face visible. Standing together, they formed a picture of perfect family harmony, so dazzling it brought tears to the eyes. George saw him too. His small body instantly tensed. He recognized Justin. Though they'd only met once through the rain, that face had likely been etched into his hazy memories long ago. He tightened his grip on my hand, tilting his small face upward, his voice trembling in a way he didn't understand himself. Mommy, it was Daddy. His voice wasn't loud, but in the relatively quiet children's clothing store, it felt like a pebble dropped into still water. Justin and Riley turned their heads at the same time. Justin's gaze first landed on George's face. In that instant, I saw his pupils suddenly contract, revealing clear flashes of shock, disbelief, and a hint of panic. Suddenly, his gaze snapped toward me. Our eyes locked. Time seemed to pause. His expression was intensely complex, like churning ink, filled with shock, scrutiny, frozen indifference, and even a hint of pain I couldn't decipher. But that fleeting pang vanished as quickly as if it had been a figment of my imagination. In its place came a deeper chill and a condescending detachment. His thin lips pressed tightly together, his jawline set rigidly firm. Riley spotted us too. Her expression instantly darkened, her gaze slicing through me and George like knives before settling on Justin's face, alert and tinged with a barely perceptible flicker of panic. She immediately slipped her arm through Justin's, her voice deliberately softening with a hint of possessiveness. Justin, shall we get this for the baby? The salesperson said it's a new style and really complements the baby's complexion. Justin didn't move. His gaze remained fixed on my face, like an ice pick. The air froze. George timidly called out again, his voice filled with immense longing, Dad. At that sound, Justin's brow furrowed deeply. Riley immediately shrieked, Kid, you've got the wrong person. He's not your dad. She turned to the sales clerk, her voice thick with suppressed anger. What's wrong with your store? Do you just let anyone in? This is ruining our shopping experience. The saleswoman looked utterly embarrassed and flustered. I took a deep breath, forcing all my emotions deep down inside. I crouched down, wrapped my arms around George, and spoke in the calmest voice I could muster. George, you've mistaken him. That's not Daddy. Let's go. I picked him up and turned to leave. I didn't look back at Justin once. My steps were steady. But only I knew that each step felt like walking on the edge of a knife. Behind him, Riley's voice seemed deliberately amplified. "Justin, look at this one." Justin's low, anger-choked rebuke cut through the air. "Enough." Stepping out of the mall entrance, the sunlight was blinding. George buried his little face in my shoulder, his tiny shoulders trembling slightly. He didn't cry out loud. He just silently shed tears. The hot tears soaked through my shirt. I held him close as we stood on the bustling street, feeling the world's clamor fade away. "Good boy, George." I gently patted his back, my voice soft enough to melt. "Mommy's right here." "Mom," he finally couldn't hold back, his voice breaking as he asked, why doesn't Dad want me?" "Why?" I want to ask the same thing. Why can he abandon me without a second thought, then turn around and start a new family, have new children? Why must my son endure this agony of rejection? My heart feels like it's being repeatedly squeezed by a giant hand, the pain so intense it takes my breath away. But I cannot break. I held him tighter, whispering into his ear, word by word, "Because he doesn't deserve you. George, remember, having your mom is enough. Mom will give you the best love in the whole world." He lifted his tear-stained little face, looked at me, and nodded vigorously. "Yes. George has his mom, and that's enough." Back home, I rocked George to sleep. Watching his tear-streaked face as he slept, I sat motionless by the bed for a long time. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. On the other end, there was only deathly silence. Several seconds passed before a voice I'd never forget, cold and deep, reached me. "Jenna, we need to talk." It was Justin. My fingers clutched the phone, icy cold. Yet my heart, strangely, grew calm in that moment. Finally. "Mr. Justin, there's nothing left to discuss between us." My voice remained flat. "The child." His tone carried an unquestionable force. "Tomorrow at 10 a.m., Blue Shore Cafe." After saying that, he hung up without giving me a chance to refuse. Domineering, just like back then. I stared at the darkening phone screen and gave a wry smile. Fine. Some things need to be put to rest. The next morning, I entrusted George to Winnie. "He asked to see you?" Winnie looked tense. "Jenna, be careful. That bastard definitely has something up his sleeve." "Should I go with you?" "No need." I shook my head. "Some things need to be said face to face." "Don't worry, he can't hurt me." Blue Shore Coffee, with its serene ambience, comes with a hefty price tag. When I arrived, Justin was already seated in a corner spot by the window, a barely touched cup of black coffee sitting before him. Dressed in an expensive bespoke suit, he stood tall and straight, his profile still unrealistically perfect in the morning light. Yet the aura radiating from him felt even colder, harder, and more distant than 3 years ago. I walked over and sat down across from him. The waiter approached, and I ordered a glass of lemonade. Justin lifted his eyes to meet mine. His gaze was like a cold spotlight, scanning my face inch by inch with scrutiny and assessment, as if searching for traces of these past 3 years etched upon my features. "Kid," he cut straight to the point, his voice devoid of warmth, "is it mine?" I met his gaze without flinching. "Yes." "Why didn't you say so?" "What should I say?" I retorted, a hint of sarcasm curling my lips. "Tell Mr. Justin, I'm carrying your child, would you like to take a look? Then wait for your secretary to deliver a card with the message, 'Don't bother me again'?" His jaw tightened, his gaze sharp. The situation was different then. "Riley, she." "Justin." I cut him off, my voice not loud but clear as it hit the tabletop. "Don't insult me with any of your excuses. The child is mine. From the moment you chose to abandon him, he has nothing to do with you." He stared at me, his eyes like frozen ice. "Jenna, you're testing my limits. My child, Justin's child, will not be left out in the cold. Stranded out there?" I smiled, though the humor didn't reach my eyes. "He's doing just fine now. He has a mother, a home, books to read, friends. It's 100 times better than tagging along with a father who abandoned him." "You." A flash of anger flickered in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. "What do you want? Money? Or recognition? Name your price." "A price?" I stared at him coldly, as if he were a stranger. "Justin, what else can you think of besides money? Do you really believe everyone craves your cash? Your handouts? Listen carefully. George is my son, Jenna's son. He's not your blood. I don't need your money, nor do I care about your family status. And I won't let my son acknowledge a father who abandoned him. I'm here today to tell you to stay away from us, my son and me. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to let everyone know that Justin, the billionaire CEO, is a hypocrite who can abandon his own flesh and blood. Justin's expression darkened completely, his face becoming sinister and frightening. Jenna, are you threatening me? It's a warning. I stood up and picked up my bag. Mr. Justin, this is the end between us. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. After saying that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Behind me, his voice came coldly, straining to contain his immense fury. You'll regret this. Regret? I stepped out of the cafe, sunlight spilling over me. My heart felt icy cold, yet I experienced an unprecedented sense of relief. The one who should regret this was never meant to be me. Justin's warning soon materialized. The company suddenly received notice that the client wanted to reassess the previously signed hotel uniform order, and might even cancel the partnership. The reason given was that the design style was inconsistent with the brand's future positioning. The person in charge of this client project was none other than Riley. Upon hearing the news, the design department erupted in an uproar. Director Hope's face turned ashen as he summoned Jade and me into his office. What's going on? Didn't they approve the proposal? The samples were all cleared. Now they're saying the positioning doesn't match? Are they messing with us? Director Hope slammed his fist on the desk in fury. Jade was equally indignant. Exactly. We poured so much manpower and resources into the early stages. Now they want to pass the buck with a simple, it doesn't fit our positioning? Everyone's eyes are on me, filled with scrutiny, doubt, and even a hint of resentment. India muttered under her breath, could it be someone crossed Manager Riley? Harper chimed in with a knowing look. Yeah, when Manager Riley came to check the samples a few days ago, she didn't look too happy. Winnie was beside herself with worry and asked me privately, Jenna, do you think Justin and Riley are behind this? I remained silent. Riley's move was ruthless. Was he trying to force me into submission with work? Or did he want to crush me completely, making me vanish from their sight? Director Hope suppressed his anger and looked at me. Jenna, you've been handling this project. Talk to Manager Riley and find out exactly where things went wrong. See if there's any room for maneuver. Understood. I nodded calmly. I picked up my phone and dialed Riley's number. It rang several times before being answered. Hello? Riley's voice carried an impersonal, businesslike coldness. Manager Riley, this is Jenna. Regarding the hotel uniform order. Oh, Jenna. Riley interrupted me, his tone flat and emotionless. You've been notified that your company has received the notice, correct? We sincerely apologize. This decision stems from our corporate strategic realignment. While the previous proposal was indeed excellent, it no longer aligns with our future direction. We will pay the liquidated damages as stipulated in the contract. Manager Riley, I remained composed. The proposal was personally approved by your team, and we've invested significant upfront costs. If style adjustments are needed, we can collaborate on modifying the design until it aligns with your new positioning. Canceling the partnership outright would be detrimental to both parties. Riley's voice turned cold, tinged with a barely perceptible edge of sarcasm. Jenna, some things can't be fixed by tweaking a design. People need to know their place. What isn't meant for you won't come to you by force, it'll only bring trouble. She paused, her words carrying a hidden meaning. I suggest you focus your energy where it belongs. Like, taking good care of your child. After all, being a single mom, it's no walk in the park, is it? That final sentence felt like a poisoned needle. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the phone. So Manager Riley is saying the partnership is off because of personal reasons? I cut straight to the point. Riley sneered coldly. Jenna, don't push your luck. After everything I've said, you still don't get it? Stay away from Justin. Stay out of my life. Otherwise, losing your job will be just the beginning. With that, she hung up the phone. The office fell deathly silent. Director Hope, Jade, and Winnie all stared at me. Clearly, Riley's final threat hadn't been whispered. Director Hope's expression shifted unnervingly before she sighed. Jenna, you. Oh, how did you get involved with someone like that? I'm sorry, Director. My personal matters have dragged the company into this mess. I stood up and bowed deeply. What good does it do to bring that up now? Director Hope waved his hand impatiently. The order fell through, that's a fact. All our initial investments went down the drain. This loss. Director. Winnie protested urgently, this isn't Jenna's fault. It's clearly the other party settling a personal score. Enough. Director Hope cut her off. The marketplace is a battlefield. When someone holds leverage over you, you only have yourself to blame for being careless. She looked at me with a complex expression. Jenna, regarding this matter, you won't be handling the core project for now. Just finish up the miscellaneous tasks on your plate first. This was a subtle way of giving me the cold shoulder. Jade looked at me, hesitated to speak, and ultimately said nothing. India and Harper exchanged a smug look. I stood there, feeling the varied stares directed at me from all sides. My heart sank to the bottom. Not because I'd lost a project, but because of this helplessness, this feeling of being casually crushed by power and money. Riley and Justin, they could crush everything I've worked so hard to build with just a flick of their fingers. Winnie chased me out. Jenna, don't lose heart. I'll go talk to the boss. This is just bullying. I grabbed her arm and shook my head. Winnie, it's no use. Riley has Justin backing him. Our company? We can't afford to cross them. So what do? Just let them bully you like this? Ruin your future? Winnie's eyes reddened with anger. I stared out the window at the gray, hazy sky, my gaze hardening bit by bit. They won't destroy it. I turned to face Winnie. Do me a favor. What kind of favor? Just say the word. Set up a meeting with Kylie, the CEO of YK. The sooner, the better. Winnie froze. YK? That top-tier resort brand? Their CEO Kylie is notoriously aloof and picky. A small company like ours doesn't stand a chance. Plus, CEO Kylie and Justin seem to have some connection. I know, I cut her off, my gaze sharp. That's why we need to find her. She loves designs with spirit, ones that break the mold. And I happen to have an idea. One, powerful enough to win her over. Winnie looked into the fire burning in my eyes, as if seeing me anew. Winnie, I gripped her hand, my voice brimming with a do-or-die resolve. They want to crush me with their power? Then I'll fight back with my strength. Riley thinks she can easily trample me? I'll rise higher. So high that she, and Justin, can't even reach me. The opportunity to meet President Kylie was secured by Winnie through every connection she had, navigating multiple layers of contacts to arrange an extremely brief meeting. 15 minutes. In the tea room of a private club. Kylie, founder of the YK brand, in her 40s, well-preserved with an aloof and detached aura. Dressed in a simple linen robe, she sat there like a quiet orchid, yet her gaze was sharp enough to pierce the soul. You have 15 minutes. She spoke calmly, her voice flat. Winnie quickly introduced, President Kylie, this is Jenna, our company's designer. She has a concept for resort where that I believe aligns perfectly with YK's philosophy. Kylie's gaze fell on me, scrutinizing. I gave a slight nod, skipping pleasantries, and immediately opened the tablet I carried with me, pulling up several concept sketches. President Kylie, YK's philosophy is hidden in the wilderness, at peace within. Your guests seek ultimate relaxation and resonance with nature. I believe their attire should also serve this state of being. My voice was steady and clear, radiating powerful confidence. On the screen was a series of designs I'd painstakingly conceived over the past period. No intricate prints, no dazzling colors. The primary palette features YK's signature shades, smoky gray, moonlight white, slate blue, and moss green, drawn from mountain mists, moonlit bamboo groves, and rain-kissed moss. All materials are crafted from premium natural fabrics, heavyweight silk, soft cashmere, drapey linen, and breathable cotton linen blends. The silhouette design centers on emptiness and stillness. I pointed to the diagram. A loose H-shaped tunic drapes like mountain mist, asymmetrical wide-leg pants sway with the rhythm of passing breezes. A reimagined dress features a matching woven belt at the waist, outlining the body's natural curves without constraint. I enlarged the detail image, eliminating all metal zippers and rigid buttons. We exclusively use hand-sewn buttonholes, fabric ties, or natural horn buttons. Stitching employs the finest herringbone stitching to achieve a seamless wearing experience. We pursue not designs that demand attention, but wearable experiences that fade into the background. Clothing becomes a second skin, blending seamlessly with nature and returning to tranquility, allowing guests to truly shed every urban constraint and label. I set down my tablet and looked at Kylie, President Kylie. True luxury lies in inner peace and freedom. YK is creating such a space, and I hope my design can become an indispensable part of this spatial experience. The tea room was enveloped in silence. Winnie watched Kylie nervously. Kylie remained silent. She simply stared at my tablet screen, her fingers unconsciously swiping through the design sketches. Her gaze, which had started as an examination, gradually deepened into a fixed stare, finally lighting up with a glow that bordered on astonishment. Time ticked by. 15 minutes had long passed. She finally lifted her head, her gaze piercing as she looked at me. Jenna? Yes. These designs, are they your original work? Yes. From concept to detail. I met her gaze without flinching. She suddenly smiled. Her icy expression melted like snow. Manager Winnie. She looked at Winnie. Yes, President Kylie. Winnie responded immediately. This designer you brought, Kylie tapped her tablet, is quite interesting. Full of ideas. She stood up and extended her hand to me. Jenna, your 15 minutes convinced me. Find a time to bring your complete collection proposal to my company for a detailed discussion. A wave of immense joy washed over me. Suppressing my excitement, I reached out and clasped her hand. Thank you, President Kylie, for giving me this opportunity. Her hand was warm and firm. Stepping out of the club, the sunlight was blindingly bright. Winnie excitedly threw her arms around me. Jenna. You're amazing. You did it. President Kylie actually gave the nod. Oh my gosh. I couldn't help but laugh too, my eyes stinging with tears. Against all odds. Riley and Justin thought they could block my path? I'll carve out a highway to the top. The news of landing the YK collaboration exploded like a bomb in the design department. Director Hope's gaze toward me was filled with disbelief and sheer elation. Jenna. You're something else. That's Kylie. YK. She slapped my shoulder excitedly. Quick. Form a project team immediately. You're in full charge. The company will throw all its resources behind you. The colleagues who had been watching coldly now stared at me with nothing but shock and awe. India and Harper sidled up, their smiles obsequious. Sis Jenna, is there anything we can do to help? Just give us the word. Jade also said sincerely, Jenna, congratulations. Call me anytime if you need support. The world's fickleness is nothing new. My heart remained unruffled, focused only on a clear goal. The YK project was a turning point in my life. I had to give it my absolute all. From that day on, I plunged into a frenzy of work. Assembling a core team, refining the design blueprint, scouring the nation for the finest natural fabric suppliers, and connecting with the most skilled artisanal workshops. Every step of the way, I personally oversaw each detail, striving for perfection. Winnie became my most reliable support, handling coordination both inside and outside the company. George was very understanding, knowing his mom was busy with an important project, and behaved exceptionally well at daycare. Sometimes when I come home late at night, he'll still rub his eyes and get up to pour me a cup of warm water. Mom, you've worked so hard. Seeing my son's innocent yet thoughtful face, all my fatigue feels worthwhile. YK's collection design, named LVV, received Kylie's full approval after she reviewed the complete proposal. She immediately signed a long-term collaboration agreement. YK will not only customize employee uniforms but also launch a high-end resort wear line, entirely designed by my studio. That weekend when the LVV series sample garments were completed, YK hosted a small, private preview event at its new flagship store in New York. The guests were all YK's core members and socialites. Kylie specifically invited me to attend. I slipped into a moon-white cheongsam dress I designed myself, a simple stand-up collar, flowing diagonal lapels, a waist that naturally cinched, and a skirt that draped with grace. No superfluous embellishments, just a quiet elegance stripped of all artifice. George wore a matching cheapao jacket I made for him, looking every bit the little adult. The preview event exuded understated luxury. Soft lighting illuminated the suspended LVV collection garments, where natural fabrics radiated a warm luster and fluid cuts resembled works of art. The guests murmured among themselves, their eyes lingering on the garments with admiration and delight. The design, it's so comfortable. You just want to slip it on. Yes, it has a sophisticated simplicity that feels like a return to basics. I hear the designer is a newcomer? Remarkable. Kylie led me to introduce several important guests. She spoke with genuine admiration. This is Jenna, the lead designer of the LVV collection. A remarkably talented young designer. I maintained a polite smile, handling the situation with ease. In the corner, Winnie was having a snack with George. The little one was well behaved, taking small bites while her big eyes scanned the surroundings with curiosity. Suddenly, his gaze froze. A look of surprise and confusion spread across his little face. He tugged at Winnie's sleeve and whispered, "Godmother." "Daddy." Winnie followed his gaze and her expression changed instantly. I saw them too. At the entrance, two people had just walked in. Justin and Riley. Justin wore a perfectly tailored black suit, standing tall with an air of cool, distinguished elegance. Riley, in a vibrant red gown, linked arms with him, her smile reserved. Their arrival drew quite a few eyes. Clearly, they were also VIPs at YK. Justin's gaze swept casually across the venue. When his eyes landed on me, his footsteps faltered almost imperceptibly. A clear flicker of shock passed through his deep, piercing eyes. He clearly hadn't expected to see me here, much less in this manner. Riley beside him noticed me too. Her smile froze instantly on her face, her gaze like a venomous snake coiling around me, filled with disbelief and seething resentment. She probably never dreamed that the insignificant person she'd tried to crush with her schemes hadn't vanished. Instead, she'd risen to a higher place, standing right beside Kylie. Justin's gaze lingered on me for only a fleeting moment before returning to its usual cold detachment. He looked away as though I were merely an insignificant stranger. Kylie spotted them too. She furrowed her brow slightly, clearly recognizing Justin but holding little regard for him. She whispered to me, "That's Justin from Goo Group and his wife. Just business networking, no need to pay them any mind." I nodded, my expression unreadable. Winnie had already hurried over to me with George, watching the two men warily. Riley, arm in arm with Justin, her face once again adorned with a proper smile, made her way toward us. "President Kylie, it's been ages," Riley began, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Today's preview was truly splendid. And who might this be?" Her gaze settled on me, feigning uncertainty. "This is Jenna, lead designer of the LVV collection," Kylie introduced casually. "Oh? Lead designer?" Riley feigned surprise, sizing me up with a deliberately skeptical tone. "Jenna is truly young and talented. I just wonder, at such a young age, can she really carry the weight of a brand as big as YK?" Her words carried hidden meaning. Kylie's expression turned slightly cold. Justin remained silent, his gaze fixed intently on my face before shifting to George beside me, his expression complex and hard to read. When George saw Justin, his small hand instinctively tightened its grip on my skirt as he shrank back behind me. Riley caught George's subtle gesture, noticed his eyes and brows resembling mine, and the unmistakable, undeniable features of Justin. Her gaze instantly turned venomous. "Oh my, this child." She dramatically covered her mouth, her voice neither too loud nor too soft, yet loud enough for those nearby to hear. "He looks just like Justin. Jenna raising him alone must be so hard. I wonder who the father is." Those words were utterly vicious. Not only did they expose the relationship between the child and Justin, but they also blatantly insinuated that I was morally corrupt. All eyes instantly turned to me, filled with scrutiny and curiosity. Kylie's expression darkened completely. Winnie's face turned pale with anger. George, startled by this sudden hostility, clung tightly to my leg, his wide eyes filled with fear. "Mommy." I felt Justin's gaze suddenly turn cold and sharp, like a knife aimed at Riley. Riley, however, looked at me smugly, waiting to see me lose my composure. I bent down and picked up George. The little guy immediately buried his head in the crook of my neck. I gently patted his back, then lifted my head and looked Riley straight in the eye, even wearing the faintest hint of a smile. "Ms. Riley." My voice was clear and calm, devoid of any panic or humiliation. "Who the child's father is, what business is that of yours? Are you envious that I can raise a child so well on my own? Or are you worried that you yourself Can't hold on to someone's heart. Riley's smile froze on his face as his complexion shifted between pale and flushed. You. Riley. Justin finally spoke, his voice low and sharp, laced with warning. He glanced at me with an intensely complicated look, then suddenly grabbed Riley's wrist so hard she cried out in pain. Justin. You're hurting me. Riley screamed. Justin paid no heed, practically dragging her along as he turned and stormed out of the preview event. The farce came to an abrupt halt. A murmur of low whispers rippled through the crowd. Kylie looked at me, her eyes filled with admiration and a hint of regret. Jenna, I'm sorry. I shook my head. President Kylie, you're the one who shouldn't be apologizing. It was just a farce, don't give it a second thought. I held George close, soothing him. Within me, a clear, serene calm. Riley, all your scheming amounts to nothing more than this. Justin's hasty exit and Riley's unhinged screams became the most jarring interlude at this high-end preview event, turning into private gossip within the circle. But to me, it made no difference. The LVV series has been a resounding success. On the opening day of the YK flagship store, the collection sold out completely. Social media was flooded with posts praising LVV's natural, serene, and sophisticated design philosophy alongside its comfortable wearing experience. My name, Jenna, first made waves in the high-end design world. Media interview requests poured in. Kylie was delighted and immediately proposed establishing a studio bearing my name, operating under the YK umbrella with extensive creative freedom and a generous revenue-sharing arrangement. My career had truly reached its zenith. Busy, yet fulfilling. The numbers in my bank account keep growing. I moved into a better home and enrolled George in the finest kindergarten. Life is striding forward in the direction I've always envisioned. A late night drenched in torrential rain. I was working overtime in the studio, reviewing design drafts for the new season. My phone rang urgently. It was an unknown number. I frowned and answered. On the other end of the line, a woman's voice trembled with tears and sheer terror, hysterical. Jenna. It's you. You must be behind this. Are you satisfied? Give him back to me. Give Justin back to me. It was Riley. I was baffled. Riley? What the hell are you talking about? Stop pretending. Riley screamed into the phone, her voice distorted. Justin wants a divorce. He threw all my stuff out. He said he knows. He knows everything. You told him, didn't you? You vicious woman. Divorce? I froze. Justin and Riley were getting divorced? Riley was still screaming, it's all your fault. You bitch. Bringing that bastard back to mess things up. Think this will get you back to him? Dream on. I'm telling you, Jenna. I won't let you off the hook. Her words cut off abruptly. The phone seemed to be snatched from her hand. Then, a low, hoarse voice, laden with exhaustion and a hint of an indescribable tremor, spoke. Jenna. It's Justin. I held the phone, silent. Rain pounded wildly against the window pane. On the other end, a long silence, only his stifled breathing. A very long time passed. He barely got the words out, his voice straining from deep within his chest, each syllable heavy as lead. That DNA test report, it's fake. My breath caught in my throat for that very instant. Time seemed to snap back to that stormy day 3 years ago. The secretary's cold words rang out. Justin wants you to stop interfering in his life. He said if the money isn't enough, he can give more, but he won't see the child. Little one, your father, has a new family now. Fake. That paternity test report proving the child wasn't his biological son, it was fake? So, he genuinely believed that report back then, which is why he abandoned us so decisively? So, George has always been his biological son? The overwhelming flood of information left my mind reeling. Riley, fake? I heard my own voice ask, dry as sandpaper scraping. Yes. Justin's voice was filled with pain and self-mockery. She bribed the people at the appraisal agency. I only found out today. He seemed unable to continue. On the phone, only his heavy, stifled breathing remained, along with the endless patter of rain outside the window. My heart felt as though an invisible hand had clenched it tightly, sore and swollen, suffocatingly painful. It wasn't that I hadn't doubted before. But given the circumstances at the time, that cold report, his ruthless attitude, the secretary's words, all the evidence pointed to one fact: he had abandoned us, mother and child, for his new lover. So this was the ugly truth. He too had been kept in the dark? Jenna. Justin's voice sounded again, tinged with a near humble plea. Can I see the baby? See the child? I snapped back to reality. The pain of being deceived, the despair of abandonment, the hardship of raising a child alone, all surged through me in an instant. Those tears shed late at night, the helplessness when my son had a high fever, the anger when Riley pushed me down, it's all still vivid in my mind. It's not something that can be erased with a simple "I don't know." I took a deep breath, suppressing the churning emotions, my voice icy. Justin, now that you know the truth? So what? Silence fell on the other end of the line. He seemed to want to say something. You want to say you're sorry? Or that you want to make amends? I finished his sentence for him, my tone laced with sarcasm. Do you really think a simple "I'm sorry" can make up for these lost 3 years? That it can erase the pain my son felt when his own father denied him? Justin, do you know that George once stood in the rain outside your villa, waiting with all his heart to see Dad? Do you know how much hurt and confusion he felt inside when he recognized you in the mall and timidly called out, "Dad"? Did you know how heartbroken he was when Riley pointed at him and said, "He's not your dad"? My barrage of questions felt like icy lashes. On the other end of the line, Justin's breathing grew heavier and more urgent, laced with palpable agony. I don't know. Jenna. His words tumbled out incoherently, his voice thick with regret and overwhelming helplessness. You didn't know? I sneered. Right. Justin's got a million things on his plate, how could he possibly know about such trivial matters? Just saying "I didn't know" lets him wash his hands of all responsibility? My voice was cold and hard as steel. Justin, listen carefully. The truth is, what happened between you and Riley is your business. You two sort it out. George is my son, is, and always will be. He has nothing to do with you. Don't ever come back and disrupt our lives again. With that, I hung up the phone. I added that number to my blacklist. Outside the window, the rain poured down in torrents. Leaning against the cold glass, I felt all the strength drain from my body. My heart felt like a jar of mixed emotions had been overturned. Anger? Yes. For that fate maliciously tampered with, for the suffering my son and I endured for nothing. Sorrow? That too. For him to be deceived so easily, and for the melodramatic yet inevitable conclusion between us. But more than that, it was a weary sense of closure and relief. The truth has come to light. But the damage is already done. Some rifts can never be mended. He and I are ultimately two lines that fate twisted apart and ultimately severed. Each to their own, without disturbing one another, that's the best outcome. On a sunny weekend, I took George to the newly opened ocean park. The little guy wore the new t-shirt I'd bought him, carried a small water bottle, and was as excited as a little sparrow. Mom. Look. A great white shark. He pressed himself against the massive glass wall, pointing excitedly at the ocean's apex predator gliding through the tank. I smiled as I took his picture. Mom. Dolphins. They're jumping so high. He tugged my hand, weaving through the crowd, his little face beaming with pure joy. Seeing his carefree smile, my heart felt completely full. After playing until we were tired, we rested on a park bench and ate ice cream. George took a small lick of his ice cream, then suddenly looked up at me with wide eyes and asked earnestly, "Mommy, is Daddy a bad person?" I hadn't expected him to bring this up out of the blue. Since the last preview event at YK, he hasn't mentioned the word dad again. I thought he'd forgotten. Turns out, the little guy had been harboring doubts all along. I set down the ice cream and looked earnestly into his clear eyes. George, he's not a bad person. George blinked, as if processing my words. But, I took his small hand, my voice gentle yet firm, he's not a good father. I paused, choosing to explain in a way he could understand. He missed so much. He missed your first steps, your first time calling mommy, your first day of kindergarten. He missed growing up alongside you, protecting you. These missed moments can't be made up for with just an "I'm sorry." So, I stroked his little head. We don't need him. You have your mom, your godmother, and so many people who love you. Mom will love you twice as much and give you the very best the world has to offer. That's enough, right? George looked at me, his big eyes blinking rapidly. He seemed deep in thought. Then he nodded vigorously, his face breaking into a huge, beaming smile. George just needs his mom. Mom's the best. He leaned in and planted a loud kiss on my cheek, smearing ice cream all over my face. Icy cold, sweet as can be. My heart, in this moment, is enveloped by a vast wave of warmth and contentment. All the hardships, all the struggles, have melted into the sweetness of this instant. Enough. Really, enough. I picked him up and kissed his little cheek. Come on. Mommy's taking you out for a treat. Yay. A treat. George cheered. Hand in hand, we joined the joyful crowd. Sunlight bathed us in its warm embrace. The road ahead was bright. The future held promise. As for that billionaire CEO's regrets? That's his business. None of mine.